I, Dr. Randir Singh, Assistant Professor, Department of Teaching Veterinary Clinical Complex, on behalf of my department and IDP cell, Nehab Gadwasu, welcome all the dignitaries present in this virtual classroom. As this program is being simultaneously conducted in online mode also, many of our colleagues, including senior faculty members and students, have joined us virtually also. I welcome you all in this function. Prayer is most powerful tool mankind has. So before starting, I would like to wish you and all your dear ones my personal best for your health and safety in this difficult time of COVID pandemic. As we all know that today we have with us a very special guest, a distinguished scientist who is also a professional manager, chairman, and a successful entrepreneur. I feel immense pleasure to welcome Dr. D.V.R. Prakasha Rao, who is also the president of Governing Council, National Academy of Veterinary Sciences, India. Welcome, sir. We feel privileged to have you here, and we all are excited to listen to your talk on entrepreneurial opportunities for vets. We are also happy to have a dynamic scientist and a versatile administrator, Dr. Inderjeet Singh, Honorable Vice Chancellor Gadwasu, with us. Welcome, sir. Now I would like to request Dr. Navleen to formally welcome our chief guest of today's function, Dr. Rao, with flowers. I request all the dignitaries to join us in welcoming our chief guest. Thanks, Dr. Navleen. Now, I would like to call upon Dr. Mohaneet to formally welcome Dr. Inderjeet Singh, sir, with flowers. Thanks, Dr. Mohaneet. Now, I request Dr. S.P.S. Guman, Dean, College of Veterinary Sciences and PI of NEHEP project, for the welcome address.
Thank you, Dr. Randeep. Again, welcome Dr. Prakash Rao, Dr. Inderjeet Singh, the Vice Chancellor, officers of the university, heads of the departments, faculty, students present here, as well as present online. So we are very lucky and honored that Dr. Prakash Rao, personality like Dr. Prakash Rao, is here. Over the time course, you will know what type of personality. By the end of the day, you will know what type of personality he is and what we have gained from him in a day. If we talk about the Prakash Rao, the best example comes as said by economists that although we all know that necessity is the mother of invention, but that doesn't end there. That invention has to be transformed to innovation, and that doesn't happen automatically. For that, we require entrepreneurs, basically the persons who take financial risk, do continuous improvement on the invention, and make them into a innovation. Like technological innovations we have in our university, like animal nutrition is making dog feed, they have made mineral mixtures. In LPM department, there are many inventions done, technological innovation done in College of Fisheries, in College of Dairies. There are a number of technological inventions done, but they have to be transferred to innovations by some entrepreneurs. So this is all the story related to this. So basically in the domain of veterinary and animal science today, the major areas where entrepreneur or the ventures they are working, they include germplasm, biologicals, preventive and therapeutic products. If you'll come across the Google or if you talk to people, there are number of persons, number of people who are working in this. Like in germplasm, there is some Yashwant Agritech in Maharashtra who are working very fine in poultry. Like in our area, there are bulls, very good bulls, Sultan and Yuvraj, the owners of them. They are all the typical example of the entrepreneurial qualities in germplasm. And there are entrepreneurs working in biologicals, and even entrepreneurs they are working in clinical science. There is a veterinarian named Mr. Tripathi or Mr. Mathur, I think. The area is Krishna limb. That veterinarian moved to making prosthetic limb for animals and is working very fine. So that is the type of thinking which we should have. And regarding nutrition, we are lucky that we have a personality with us today who has done a lot of hard work, and his sheer commitment and devotion that his company has achieved, and is a big partner or a big, you can say the area they are covering in nutrition, particularly poultry feeds. And now they are also taking proteins, type of things which they have to give to the animals or the both bovines and poultry. When we are going through their website, the name is Prakash Foods and Feed Limited. The main line there is innovation sets us apart from our competitors. So basically, continuous improvement and the brain which we have, that leads to, with the experience, that makes you quite capable. If we, it's my duty to give you some idea about our main chief guest today. You see, he's 75 years old today. And yesterday when I was traveling, I had some discussion with sir. On Friday, he was meeting ministers. On Saturday, on Thursday, he was meeting with ministers. Yesterday, he has a meeting with in NVS, which had to skip. Today, he's with us. Tomorrow, his, I think, daughter is landing from US. But he's with us here, accompanying us. Now, I will tell you why he's doing like this. If you see his BVSC and AH, gold medalist in BVSC and AH from Odisha University, gold medalist in MVSC from IVRI in animal nutrition, and even gold medalist in PhD from CLRI Madras. Such a brilliant student, which could have been a very good researcher, scientist, must have gone to academics, but ultimately became an entrepreneur. In the initial years, after completing his degree in animal nutrition, Dr. Rao worked with Shah Wellness from 1970s to 80s for a number of years as a general manager. Then after that, he had a assignment with United Nations for I think 8-9 years. Dr. Rao worked with United Nations and has traveled most of the countries. And somehow, due to the family circumstances, he has to come back to India. He was not able to get a good job. So he thought that why not do some technological innovation and move to entrepreneurship. He developed this technology where from the byproducts of animals, the proteins can be made, with protein feed can be made. All the technology was costly. Setting up plant was very difficult. So just at the start, Dr. Rao started with mineral mixture. He sold the mineral mixture for some years, but ultimately have some tie up with bank, took some loan, and ultimately ventured into this protein technology. I asked sir yesterday how was the investment at that time. He told me that at that time it was in 1986, about 50,000 was invested. And today the turnover is more than 200 crores. And 2 factories are there, more than 300 employees, they work under him. So at the age of 40, that was started. Now he's 75, you can think even he's active today. What could potential must be he having at the age of 40 at that time in 1986. So that type of thing we need to show to our students. We need to tell our students. As a veterinarian, we have always a technological advantage that we are just not like some normal BSc or MSc. We always have much more knowledge than that. We can venture into any technological innovation. Our students, they work quite hard in academics, doing research, day and night they work. They get good grades, good performance, but ultimately when they have to apply in the fields, they are always hesitant. But Government of India is starting many programs like Startup India, Stand Up India, Atal Innovation Scheme, Seed Scheme. There are many schemes they are going on. Although immediately after completing degree, it may not be possible to directly go to some technological innovation or entrepreneurship, but our aim is at least to tell the students that these are the areas also where they can venture. So keeping this in mind, the central government has awarded us that project, Institutional Development Plan, in which the idea is mainly increasing the learning outcomes of the students. Not only the just lecture and everything, but more than that, what more than government jobs? What are the skill development centers, how they can improve their skills. Moreover, keeping that same in mind, Government of India has replaced their 34 years old policy of education and replaced with National Education Policy. The one idea of that National Education Policy is to improve the standards of education, and the second idea is to make the students more imaginative, more proactive, so that they can move into this entrepreneurship type of ideas. So not taking much time, I will invite Dr. Rao to throw a light to our audience, to our students who are present online. How can they think much more and how they can venture into this entrepreneurship, and what are the various opportunities for them as a vet beyond a government job. Dr. Rao.
Respected Vice Chancellor, Dr. Inderjit Singh Ji, all deans, directors, professors of this great, very old university, and some students who are here. I deem it a great privilege and pleasure to be with all of you this morning. And I thank Dr. Inderjit Singh, who has given me this opportunity to talk to all of you. Basically, I'm an animal nutritionist, a PhD in animal nutrition, a scientist. But all of you have been listening so much of animal nutrition. I don't want to talk animal nutrition to you. I thought I'd talk something different. Should I come on? Thank you. Now the subject is entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurs are the life of an economy. Who are entrepreneurs? They generate money, they generate wealth. And I'm using the word entrepreneur here specifically because the first generation man struggles to become an entrepreneur. The subsequent people are different. Now, for professionals like us, the outlook should not be the same like any general person starting a business. If you take an average caliber of a student who joins in a veterinary course today, BVSC and AH, his scorecard is very high. He scored a lot of marks in his intermediate or +2 examination. He stands probably one of the top few in the country by ranking. So the average IQ is very good. It depends on how you transform your IQ into the other areas. You are capable of extending your imagination, capable of stretching your imagination. Only thing is you develop out-of-box thinking. Then only you become an entrepreneur. What happens in professional colleges mostly is, well, I'm finishing my degree, I'll get a job in the government, I'll wait for a job, I'll get so much of salary, I'll get non-practicing allowance, I get this, I get that, I'm happy. Mostly that was the thinking for a long time. But today, the outlook is completely changing. Because in a competitive world where earning more money plays an important role for you as well as for the society you are in. People would want to look for avenues where challenges are more available. To become an entrepreneur is a challenge. It is not a routine affair. Now, what is entrepreneurship? First of all, if you want to be an entrepreneur, design a project, you design a business, because you're a professional. With your knowledge, you have studied so many animal nutrition, you have studied microbiology, you have studied pathology, you have studied farming activities. So what kind of activity I want to design? You should decide the first one. So the designing, launching, and running it successful a business, that is what is entrepreneurship. The three components: designing of the project, launching it, the product, and then making it successful and making it profitable. These are the aspects of entrepreneurship. Now, question is, why should become an entrepreneur in today's situation? First prime point is self-employment. You are not looking for a job. Whereas if you become you'll become an employer rather than an employee. That means you have the courage to become an employer rather to become a subordinate employee. After all, in employment, whatever cadre you are there's one more person above you to whom you are accountable, to whose whims and fancies you have to work. There is no, even if you feel something is good, you can't express very freely. So self-employment gives you an opportunity that your own abilities are expressed much better than in a job. Then definitely you generate more wealth than what a salary is. Once you're successful, you generate more wealth for yourself and for the country. And you provide job for others. Each small employer can take 10 jobs. Imagine 10 people. If there are 100 people, if there are 100 veterinarians are become employers, 100 into 10, he's employing 1,000 people. They're employing 1,000 people. So, whereas when you work as a veterinary assistant surgeon or start your career or as a veterinary officer, you are not doing you are not employing anybody. Government employees are subordinates under you. So providing employment to others is a big service to the nation and society. Another aspect of it is you also develop or you also contribute to the GDP. I hope all of you are aware of GDP, gross domestic product. Now today, India's GDP is about $3 trillion is the economy today. Now the Prime Minister's target is to reach $5 trillion. This is what he's working on. But we could reach $3 trillion economy today. So you'll also be contributing for the economy of the country. And of course, you're helping the society. See, a very small example. You're living in a colony. Some fellow comes and opens a kirana shop, a small shop. It is so convenient for the people living around. They can go and buy milk from him. They can go and do something for him. Somebody doesn't take a car and go. That is, he may be making some living out of it, but it is also a service to the society. He is helping the society living around to live more comfortably than otherwise somebody has to take a car, a scooter, drive some distance, go and buy things. I'm talking a basic example. So that way an entrepreneur serves the society also. Entrepreneur word, profit-making words at one time are considered as sins. If a businessman doesn't make profit, what does he do? Nothing wrong. That is his job. As a teacher is supposed to teach. A businessman's job is to make money. That's his objective. So there's nothing wrong to find fault. Oh, a businessman makes money. Yes, that is his job. Now, what are the qualities you can evaluate yourself? What is the quality? See, qualities are two types, inborn and acquired. Certain qualities are inborn, but most of the qualities are acquired. For example, let's say somebody says, I'm very short-tempered, sir. It is not correct. You can control your temper, not that you cannot. It is not an inborn trait, it is an acquired trait. So what qualities you have developed, you have acquired, or fortunately you are born with it. I'll list out a few. Creativity. You should the first quality for an entrepreneur is creativity. You should be able to create something. You must have, yes, because you're a first generation man, there's nothing before you. You only have knowledge. You have spent 5 years in a college. You have learned so many subjects. Now you have to stretch your imagination based on the subjects. These subjects will not teach you how to start a business. These subjects give you the background to stretch your imagination. What can I do? Animal nutrition will teach us how does a protein help for a body's metabolism, or how it works at ionic level, how minerals work at an ionic level. But they won't tell you how to sell a mineral mixture, to make a mineral mixture and sell, or how to make a vaccine and sell. The method of making a vaccine can be known to you. But when you become an entrepreneur, what happens? You try to cut short the cost, improve the efficiency. These are all you develop yourself. That is what is design. Now, you should be a visionary. Next point is, you should look at the future. You can't say that, I'm happy with what I am. That's a very, very wrong thinking. If I feel I'm happy what I am at the age of 75, I'm sure there's nobody older than me in this group. I wouldn't come and stand before you. It is the passion that makes me do it. So the passion, the vision, the passion is what is very important. And the ambition to think big, dream big. That's, you see, the entrepreneur should think big, you should dream big. And you should be confident about yourself. Yes, I can do this, but not overconfidence. Being confident is different from being overconfident. Overconfidence takes things granted. No, you should be confident about yourself. In a given situation, yes, I can perform well. Then uncertainties in business are very high. Imagine a farmer, he sows his seed, he gives a crop, heavy rain, everything is gone. At least an entrepreneur is not that badly exposed. When a farmer if he doesn't take risk, farmer, none of us will have food to eat. That way, all governments, successive governments, say farmer is the backbone of the economy. But forget backbone, if he doesn't produce food, we have no food to eat. This country cannot afford to eat. How do you feed 1.3 billion people? So the courage to face uncertainties is an important factor also for becoming an entrepreneur. Then, as our dean was telling, immediately coming out of a college, becoming an entrepreneur was becoming difficult. You have to develop some skills, interpersonal skills, technical skills, financial skills. Unless you have all these three skills, it is difficult to run an entrepreneur business. And of course, the last of it is risk-taking ability. Your ability to take a risk. You are taking a risk. Calculated risk. How much risk I take? What will happen to me if I fail? A question before is, I always ask people when people come to the projects, I ask them how much money I will lose in this project. I will not ask how much profit I make. Profit making is welcome. How much money I lose if the business fails? Is it 1 crore, 2 crores? Then I would like look whether can I afford this loss or not. If I think I can afford this loss, so when you're an entrepreneur just starting, your ability to absorb loss could be 1 lakh or 50,000. So that's how you should understand what is my risk-taking ability. What can I do? So these are the few traits, but let me tell you, most of them are acquired. They're not that one should be born with this. And you not go, I don't have this trait, I don't have that trait. You will be forced to acquire. Somebody is left in a sea. He learns swimming and come out of it. He has to do it. Like that, when you get into entrepreneurship, you develop these skills also. Now, as I was telling you initially, the base for any professional to go in a successful business, a successful industry could be always a knowledge-based industry today. General businesses are difficult to survive. Profit margins are very low. And for people like us who can otherwise also make good amount of money. Now today, any veterinary doctor can make ₹1 lakh a month. Some practice, government salary, all that. So whereas a general MSc or a BSc can't do that. So what you should see is, with my caliber, when I go into an enterprise, what can I make? Can I make 2 lakhs? Can I make 3 lakhs? When I'm talking about initial stages, they don't even make a few crores. That's different. For that purpose, you cannot go into a general business. You must go into a technology-oriented business or a knowledge business or technological innovation. That is watchword today. The technological innovation and its application to the industry plays a very prominent role in the growth and profitability of any new industry. This is what essentially is the lifeline of any industry, good industry. So professionals should become innovative entrepreneurs. I would like to add a word, innovative entrepreneurs, not entrepreneurs alone. Because innovation is now the industry what I am in today is the technology I have developed when I was in United Nations. In fact, I would request all of you, I have a website and there's a 5 minutes video on the website where you can see my factory, you can see my raw material, animal byproducts, how I keep them, and I've imported the machinery. I've got a high capacity cookers. Each cooker is 10,000 tons, 10 tons, 10,000 liters capacity, where I cook the material. Those were the video. I didn't want to present it here because you put prakashfish.com, you'll get the video. Now, why I'm saying this is, it should be your technology is very important. And I developed this technology when I was United Nations. That is, we visualized at that time, we means the project. I don't want to say I. We visualized that this country will grow. The population growth is very high. The requirement of animal protein is going to be high. So the poultry industry, dairy industry, meat industry have got to grow. The shortage will be feeding protein for poultry, for aqua, because 70% of the world is water, 30% is the land, roughly I'm talking. So in fact, I was called for a FAO meeting in Rome 2 years back. I was invited for a discussion. Few experts have been called. The discussion was, how do you meet the protein requirements of the world in the next 10-15 years? What is the source? Agriculture is becoming difficult because land is low. Then large animals is difficult because they require more land. So the two ideas, the two items what were discussed very rigorously was particularly for the Southeast Asian countries where the population is quite big. You talk of Sri Lanka, you talk of India, you talk of Bangladesh, population density is very high. Chicken and fish. There's so much of water area is there. Fish is going to be a very good big source of aqua is going to be a big source of big industry for future to come. If you have to feed protein for this 1.3 billion people, maybe 1 point they can become 1.6. We don't know. It is good. Population is growing every year. Similarly, poultry, eggs, chicken, eggs. See, I would like to draw your attention to one small area. When I joined this industry in 1971, the per capita consumption of eggs used to be 8 or 10. I remember it was 8, I think. It was 8 or 10. Whereas today we're talking of 81, 82. Imagine the growth in a matter of 35 years, 40 years. Similarly, the total production of feed in this country used to be 1 lakh tons per year. Whereas today 55 million tons per year. 1 lakh tons to 55 million tons. See the growth. And I look at future, very big. Feed industry can grow definitely at the rate of 8%. Poultry is growing at the rate of 8%, layers are growing at 7%, and broiler is growing at 10%. Milk industry is growing at 5 to 6%. Who has visualized the dairy industry will become so big? See, you're all young people. If you take my generation, or maybe even Dr. Inderjit Singh is younger to me by about 15 years. So even if you are maybe even younger than that. So you take his generation also. We were waiting for milk. Milk was difficult. Milk cards were being issued like ration cards. Whereas today, plenty of milk everywhere. That is the development. Our industries, the veterinary based industries. Here I have one small grudge on all veterinarians, including me. We left the dairy industry to others. It was our industry. We nourished it, we nurtured it, we treated animals, we increased the output, but it is somebody else reaping the benefit, not we. Because veterinarians did not hold the industry for themselves. How many veterinarians are employed in a dairy industry today? Very few. That matter, if you don't find fault with me, how many veterinarians are in NDRI? Hardly 1 or 2, 3 more compared to IVRI or any other veterinary. It is as a veterinarian, I feel proud that veterinarians play a very important role to feed the human food chain. We play a very important role in human food chain. That is why our industries are evergreen and bound to grow only, because human beings' growth can't be stopped. And in a rickshaw puller, you want some beef, you want some chicken, you want some egg, then only other luxuries come. Chai chahiye, you want tea. Tea means milk, you are there. Egg means you are there. Fish, you are there. So we are a part of human food chain. So the growth potential is very high. We can see a big growth potential before us. So all I'm saying is, what am I doing today is one chapter of animal nutrition, protein. Protein metabolism is one chapter of nutrition. And that way generated so much of employment. I employ around 300 people. So and I'm serving the industry, the society, the farmer, because the feed cost comes down by at least 250 to 300 rupees a ton by incorporating my product. So I'm servicing a farmer. Not that my making money is not main angle. I'm working for that. Even if I would have probably continued my job, maybe I would have become a dean or director or vice chancellor or something, because one of the oldest PhDs in the country. As a routine, it would have become. But question is, what are we doing? We are doing so it is not my making money alone. How am I serving the society? So when this concept was considered by the United Nations, converting animal byproducts into animal protein was, how are you going to feed your birds and aqua with the growth it is going to have in the future? So that's how this technology was developed by me as a team leader. So when I decided to get back to this country and settle, I brought this technology. and then I developed it in industry. Because initially I had a mineral mixture because this industry requires a lot of capital. If you see my website, my factory in Kanchipuram, I spent more than 35 crores today. I have 7 acres of land with 1 lakh square feet, built up area with 600 or 700 horsepower machines, all imported equipments. This I couldn't afford to do when I started. So I started mineral mixture. Mineral mixture is a very requirement is so less. I started 10 lakhs. I took a borrowed about. I started this industry 50,000 rupees capital. My paid up capital is 50,000 rupees when I started the industry in 86. Today my paid up capital is 10 crores. My own capital. So what I'm saying, you can start small, not that one should start very big. But you should have the courage to do it. And our industries are very good, excellent. Because you don't worry about season, you don't worry about rent, you don't worry about income levels. Now let me tell you, this lockdown was there. The only industry which it valued lockdown is poultry industry and the dairy industry. Because whether you are in the club or you are in the house, you would eat. In fact, consumption has gone up because you're not going to office. Lockdown mein consumption बढ़ गया. In fact, the per capita consumption of eggs has increased. The per capita consumption of chicken has increased during lockdown. And why I'm telling this is, they are lively industries. We veterinarians can be proud of our industries. Now, that's what I said. The progressively affluent middle class of around 450 million are consuming more animal protein. Today, you go to a doctor, anybody above 50, he says, stop eating roti, stop eating rice, eat chicken, eat eggs, drink more milk. This is what they will say. In fact, I think yesterday I was talking, today the value addition, the value output of GDP of milk is equal to wheat and rice put together. More than that. Imagine, that means the production of rice and wheat is static or has come down. But we are surplus, our godowns are full. FCI is not able to take the load because consumption of cereals has come down from the middle class, which is a major segment today. Today, Indian middle class at one time was, when we were all students, the Indian middle class was not even 100 million. Whereas today we are 450 to 500 million middle class, which is the engine to run the economy. The engine to run the economy is the middle class. 450 million people, they eat, they drink, they eat, they spend petrol, they spend diesel. That's where the economy of the country, the $3 trillion generated by them, not by anybody else. So we are a major part of it. All I am trying to talk to is how animal sciences, how veterinary sciences can be involved very closely in economic growth and human food chain. That's what you must understand. So as the economy increases, as the middle class population goes up, there is more potential for these industries. And if you convert these challenges into opportunities, well, the day is yours, the growth is yours. Now, of course, then I'll come see, I don't want to go much into MSMEs and all, because this general administration. Now, I'll come into the areas where, what are the avenues in veterinary sciences? What kind of industries? Basically, we have three main industries. Am I out of time? The dairy industry, the poultry industry, and the meat industry. Now, the dairy industry, the feed industry is common for both. Feed supplements are common for both, except animal protein. Animal protein is not fed for animals in this country, large animals in this country. So now feed supplements, feeds, huge industries. As I told you, today the estimated feed consumption is around 55 million tons per annum. In fact, it is increasing every year. If you're 1% of that, imagine what's your growth. Supplements. You require supplements to increase the digestibility of the raw materials. You see, you're in this country, we're a fat-starved economy. We are more a carbohydrate-based economy than we grow more of rice and wheat. We are more a carbohydrate-based economy. So the shortage of the fibers, for the fiber to get digested, for non-protein nitrogens to be utilized. You have to go for enzymes, supplements to strengthen this thing. But one thing I must tell you here, with all our, in case of poultry, our hen house production or gain in body weight can be compared to any developed country as equivalent. The reason being, one thing, thanks to all the scientists, thanks to all the hatcheries, thanks to all the nutritionists, thanks to the feed manufacturers. Today, can you imagine 1 kg of body weight, 1 kg of feed can produce 1.6 kg of body weight. Chicken. We are getting a 1.6 efficiency feed conversion today. One of the best in the world. Is with the low grade raw materials, what we have in this country, our raw materials, unlike US, you just can't say dump soybean, dump corn on your put corn, say 70%. In soya, if you go to USA, what is the feed formula? Soybean, little meat and bone meal, and corn. That's all. It doesn't mix anything. It makes a feed out of it because so much of corn is there, plenty. But in this country, you can't afford. In fact, about 6 months back, maize was going almost at a price of 25 rupees a kilo. And unfortunately, our farmers also want to only grow rice and wheat, not other crops. Because the time required, the attention required on these crops is relatively less as compared to the cash crops. So the supplements, the feed supplements play a very active role, a very prominent, very important role, like mineral mixture. Now, minerals, very important. Simple reason is our nutrition from the direct raw materials is not adequate to meet the nutritive requirements of the animals, birds, animals, fisheries. I'm talking about everything. I'm talking in general, that is why. I'm not going to specifics because for want of time. And all of you know it because I don't have to go into subject of nutrition. That's not my idea. My idea here is to sell you a concept that first concept is our industries are huge. They are evergreen. They are lively. We don't have to worry. They are not seasonal. Like if you talk a fertilizer company, they're seasonal. But a fertilizer company sells 6 months a year, 6 months they don't sell. Agrochemicals, 6 months a year sell because the crop is only for 6 months. So that way we don't have seasonal. Human beings have to consume 365 days. Our animals are required to produce 365 days and we have to provide for 365 days. So if you come to the poultry industry, you have got integrators. How the broiler industry has grown so big in the country today? Otherwise, today, let me tell you, we would have paid a price of 500 to 600 rupees a kilo of chicken, but for the broiler industry. The broiler industry was hardly 5-6 million birds used to be there. And today, where are we? Massive growth. This was made possible by integrators. See, integrator is a businessman, but he has inputs, which a farmer doesn't have. What is he doing today? He takes a district. There are small villages. Each one will have a shed of about to put 1,000 birds, 1,500 birds. He provides a chick for him. He provides the feed for him. He provides the veterinary aid for him. He takes back the bird. Now, based on gain in body weight, let's say a bird is supposed to bring 2 kgs body weight. The farmer gets about 3 rupees a kg or 4, but a negotiated price, it ranges 4 to 5 rupees a kilo. Now, if he's getting 5 rupees a kilo for 1,000 birds, he's getting 5,000 rupees. If he's having 2,000 birds, he's getting 10,000 rupees. 5 rupees a kilo. On 1,000 birds, he gets 5 plus 10 rupees a bird, 10,000 rupees he gets. On 1,000 birds, he gets 10,000. And he doesn't concentrate on this. His wife or some attendant look into it. It is not a full-time occupation for him. That is why, in fact, I made this statement yesterday with Minister, Honorable Minister also, that wherever there is a poultry or dairy associated with agriculture farmers are not committed suicides. In the suicide list of farmers, you will not find any poultry guy or a dairy fellow because his income, daily income, he sells eggs, he eats eggs, he can drink milk, he can drink curd. Unka revenue hai. It is not that the whole body crop is washed out and and today vaccinations are available, not the bird will die or the animals will die. So any farmer who had secondary occupation with poultry and or dairy has never committed suicide in the as per records. I'm talking about based on statistics available before. So then comes vaccines. It's another big subject yesterday we discussed. There are a lot of potential vaccines. Today, almost we are about 1 billion birds, as much as that today. So much of vaccines are required. Requirement is so high. Nutraceuticals, prebiotics, probiotics, antioxidants, enzymes, acidifiers, because antibiotics are going out now. Acidifiers are taking place. Antibiotics should be banned now. Almost decided now. Antibiotics are to be banned. Feeding of antibiotics are banned for a nutritional dose. Then your protein isolates, latest concept, protein isolates, synthetic amino acids, live yeast, egg powder, chicken processing plants. I mean, I listed a few areas which people can think of. Similarly, in dairy, cheese, flavored yogurt, plain yogurt. In fact, there's more money in products in dairy rather than milk. Milk, one where somebody has reflected the or honorable VC this morning, hardly make 50 paisa a packet in milk. But where they make money, ice cream, ghee, yogurt, cheese. That is why today a packing dairy can never survive. Packing milk dairy, only doing liquid milk, a dairy can never survive. That is a base. The real money comes out of the products, value addition. The value addition is in the dairy products. In fact, today's stage has come. People start only professionals, dairy technologists, or some good veterinarians. I know some veterinarians who want to cheese, a big way. Paneer, exclusive paneer making. He will buy milk and he makes paneer. He makes ice cream. I know a lady who makes ice cream. And she's doing very well. She makes around a few lakhs a month profit out of it. Then of course we have the farming, but farming I don't recommend so much because farming for a veterinary doctor to go and start a farm really is not so great. You can help five start the farms. Then embryo transfer technology or animal reproduction stalwarts are here. It's a great subject. It can go in industry, embryo transfer technology, frozen semen technology, artificial insemination, still a major problem. I try to identify the areas in dairy. Then your meat industry. There are two types of avenues in the meat industry available. The slaughter of cow slaughter has been banned, but buffalo slaughter is available. Buffalo lot, so the demand for increasing buffaloes have increased. But I am told, I don't know, I'm not very competent, the reproductive problems in buffaloes are more still. That's what I was told. No, is now solved, the problem is solved out now. Then it's, see, we require more buffaloes for the slaughter now. And buffalo meat is being exported. I collect out of my byproducts out of buffalo industries. So the processing of meat, and you can make a lot of products out of meat. So the industry available before you is huge. I was just saying 104 billion eggs were produced in 2018-19. And you know, large, milk-wise, we are the world's biggest. Our per capita, our production may be low per animal. But if you talk of quantity, we are the biggest in the world. We are almost 198 million or something like that. No, almost I think around 200. Now, I think with this, I'll stop. I can talk like this, but I welcome questions if people want. I am here to clarify you. I'll stand and do it because once I see it, difficult for me to get up again. I had a bad catch yesterday. In spite of it, as I promised to Honorable Vice Chancellor, I'm here. I wanted to cancel it. As an old man, I require more time to recover out of a problem. So I'll stand here. Any questions? Most welcome.
So I request all the participants who are online also and are present here in this room also that if anybody is having any question, so you can ask, please.
So we have some question in the chat box.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, can you please read it out?
Yes, sir. So mostly persons interested in entrepreneurial venture are concerned about financial security. what is your take on taking up entrepreneurship with any job? So they are asking about the financial security for starting a venture.
See, Government of India has coming out a separate schemes for startup companies. I think up to a 1 crore, you don't require a financial security if you are a qualified entrepreneur, if you're a qualified and like a professional up to 1 crore. Today doesn't require any security. Well, beyond 1 crore, definitely people require security, and that is risk. You can't help it. Beyond 1 crore, if you want, certainly you need to use security. Up to 1 crore or 50 lakhs, there is no security required. This is the scheme
Thank you,
this
sir.
government has introduced. This is the scheme this government has introduced, the new government.
Anyone else? Any question?
Sir, there is one more question.
Yes.
As a final year student of BVSC and AH, what should be the strategic plan for undergraduate to become a successful entrepreneur? So after graduation, BVSC, they are asking about the entrepreneurship opportunities.
Plan or opportunities what BBSc and AHC graduates are having.
You see, what all I spoke now is only meant for BVSC and AH graduates. But one has to get little experience. He must work somewhere at least a year or two to lay his hands on a hands-on experience is required before he becomes an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur cannot be a graduate straight away from a college, can't become an entrepreneur. See, one has to do a lot of legwork before success wants him. So he has to get some experience and then start.
Good morning, sir. I have one question, sir.
Yes, you can speak.
What do you think is the basic homework a person has to do before entering into any kind of entrepreneurial venture? Means he has to do some kind of market research prior to that? Because this is a competitive market, a lot of products are available, and that too a very competitive pricing. So if a person wants to enter into any venture, what kind of market research he should get into?
You see, it's a good question, but I have to give you a very frank, unpalatable answer for that. The reason being, market research, these are all not meant for an entrepreneur who is going to make a living. Because market research means whatever is resource you have, you spend on the market research. If you are a veterinary doctor working in an area for some time, either in an industry or in the government, you'll already know some clients. And these clients will be your starting base. When I started my industry, I never did a market research. I knew a few big feed manufacturers and I started my business with them straight away. Once you grow to some level, yes, you have money to spend. See, market research in all the companies, today, for example, an industry like me, I do a big turnover. I want to go into a product and I become old. So I would ask somebody, please do some market research, give me a report. That is for the multinationals, for people who have already established. For an entrepreneur who wants, particularly I'm talking of veterinary graduates. I'm concentrating myself only on veterinary profession here. For veterinary graduates, 2 years of exposure, 3 years of exposure, you must have met a few clients who will automatically become if they develop faith on you during your treatment with them, during your developmental work with them, that will be your best. To start with, they'll become your consumers. Let us you're starting a mineral mixture company. A small example I'm talking, because I know more about mineral mixers or feeds. I'm a nutrition guy. My background is, my core competency is there. It is not difficult to find 2-3 clients for you to break even. Then slowly you will develop. So market research and all is a big word where unless you are looking at 100 crore, 50 crore and all that's okay. But start with, that's not the idea of an entrepreneur. The entrepreneur to start with should go small and grow. Start small, grow big. That's my advice.
Sir, there is one more question in the chat box. Student
Yes.
A student from Nagpur Veterinary College is asking, can we imagine our Indian poultry without a middleman so as to increase the income of the farmers?
They are asking that can we venture for poultry farming without the help of a middleman to increase the income of farmers.
Certainly, why not? Now you see, today it is like this. The industry has come to a stage where eggs are branded and sold. In fact, I know an MBA guy in Gurgaon, where 2 or 3 MBA guys join together. They collect eggs, clean it, brand it. They don't have a farm and sell it as branded eggs. And they have clicked very well. I think they reach a turnover of about 2 crores in 1 year. So there are varieties of venues, and definitely getting into poultry is not difficult at all. No middleman required. Now, marketing of eggs, yes, if you have a farmer, marketing of eggs by you is difficult unless you have a talent to develop your own market. I know a veterinary doctor who has a broiler size of 10,000 batch. He goes by him, takes his car, goes to all the 5-star hotels, directly books orders and sells his chicken there directly. And he's doing very well. That will be a base to start with. Once you come to a level of 2, 3, 4 crores business, you can take off from there.
So, any more question?
Yes, sir. Sir, another student is asking about the process of exporting our products to other countries. He's asking about some certification or other procedures involved in the export of our products.
They are asking that to export our products, what are the procedures for certifications about the fraud if you want?
You see, normally the certifications are required from your buyer. In the sense, he specifies what he wants. Each country has its own requirement. For generally, I can tell you, the analytical specifications or the biological specifications are there. Then the quarantine department of Government of India gives you a certificate for exporting. These are the 2, 3. Otherwise, rest of them is routine customs clearance, then registering with a certificate of origin. These are all routine. You can get to you can do it very easily. The main thing is specifications of your buyer. Organizations in this country can do it. We are exporting eggs from here. We're exporting milk from here. We're exporting supplements from here. In fact, I export my product to Vietnam and to UAE. I export my protein because, for example, my own product, I require a certificate of origin. I require a customs clearance. I require a certificate from a veterinary slaughterhouse doctor that's free from animals but not affected with the FMD or any other disease before slaughtering. Then that's called health certificate, health for the animals certificate. Then we get the analytical specifications from a laboratory nominated by them and quarantine clearance from the Government of India. These are the kind of clearances you obtain for exporting.
So, anyone else?
Hello, sir.
Yeah, we have one person here. Mike.
Good afternoon, sir. I just have a query. That being a non-veterinarian, I do have interest in veterinary entrepreneurship. What kind of opportunities are there available in this case? Is there any workshop or basic certification courses which we can proceed with to get the knowledge and to go ahead with the opportunities?
I would like to know what kind of, which veterinary is a broad field. Do you want to go for large animals? Do you want to go for poultry? Do you want to go for fisheries? Do you want to go for meat? What avenue you want to develop, number one?
So suppose if I have interest in poultry.
Poultry?
Yes, sir.
Poultry, you have got a lot of organized institutions, the Government of India, which trains, your university must also be having. I know Tanavas has got a program. I'm sure Gadavas must be having a program. And central government institutes in Hesarghatta and all these places, and even BV Rao's Institute, Pune, they train courses for about 3 months, 2 months for exposure. With that exposure, you can start a poultry farm. There's no problem. A lot of institutions are providing that much of exposure. In fact, there are programs for non-vets, not for these programs are not for veterinarians. These programs are only for general degree holders. In fact, an online program I have seen with government Delhi University or Delhi for non-vets to be trained in poultry.
Okay, so thank you so much.
I can't hear you. Come here and tell me.
For long hours, like the 5 hour routine job. So, do you think is it possible to balance entrepreneurship
Entrepreneurship can never be part-time. If you're becoming a part-time entrepreneur, you will never succeed. And let me tell you, you are working 9 to 5 now. If you're an entrepreneur, you have to work from 6 to 8. Because entrepreneur works much more than any other way till you become big. Once you become big, you can relax, do whatever you want to do. But till you survive, stabilize yourself, till you come to, you cross your break even, start making profits. You have to slog. Slog is the only word for an entrepreneur. If you cannot slog, you are not fit to become an entrepreneur. When I started my business, I was cursing myself. I was working as a diplomat in the United Nations, cushy job. I started this business, I became like a dog. I used to go at 6 in the morning and used to come at 10 in the night. Because you have so many formalities to be done. So many, I have given you just a broad outline. You have to get so many licenses. You have to get so many certifications. So many government agencies create more confusion than clarity. So you have to, inspector of factories will come, revenue fellows will come, police will come, because you are a factory. Minor employees, some child labor problems will be there. So you have to initially till you establish yourself, time is not yours. Once you establish, settle down, maybe 5, 6, 8 years, then you have to take off. Then you can take off. But part-time, no. I will never recommend, because you lose money. Here you are talking, you're gambling on your hard-earned money. For a part-time job, no, I won't recommend.
So we have another question from one online student. Sir, as the trend of veganism is booming across the world, so how do you see future of dairy vet or fishery student? Will they be limited to India only? Vegans, yeah.
You see, it is like organic farming. Veganism. Can you feed this country with organic farming? I'm asking a very frank question, which people may not like my statement.
No.
Can you feed 1.3 billion people in organic farming? It is a fashion. Okay, somebody can go pay 40 rupees a kilo and buy it, or 100 rupees a kilo and buy it. How many people can buy? Similarly, vegan is okay. I know in California, I was there in California about a month back. There was a vegan restaurant, only meant for nothing, no dairy, nothing there. In fact, I attempted to eat something, I never liked it, I came off. So this is a very small percentage. I don't think that we should really worry about it. Hey, imagine what is your potential, 1.3 billion people. Most important point all of us must understand is you have to feed 1.34 billion people in this country. And we are part of it. Meat, milk, eggs, chicken, we are the producers of this. So without us, they cannot survive. So we have nobody can stop this. Now, for example, vegetarian, you mean to say the whole world will become vegetarians tomorrow? No, not possible. In vegetarians, vegans, no dairy also, not possible. Maybe some fraction, 0.5%, 1% people may be there. Well, let them, it's a fancy, that's all. No, vegan, what happens? In milk, they are not supposed to touch. They're very, very high. I don't know. It's crazy. Actually, organic farming. Can you feed 1.3 billion people with organic farming? Is it possible? Impossible. Okay, doctors can say no, fertilizer, unjudicious use is not there. A theory is different, realities are different. I spoke to you today realities, not theory. That's why I didn't talk of animal nutrition. Thank you very much. Thanks all of you. Once again, thanks Honorable Vice Chancellor.
Thanks, Dr. Rao, for a great talk, which was geared towards recognizing our gaps in the profession. There was a buzz of energy focused on the consensus that we need to do something. It's just identifying and executing that something, which is the hard part. Interestingly, though, all of the challenges that entrepreneurs face are exactly the things that we as veterinarians are trained for during our years of training. So the way I see it, there is not anyone better suited than a veterinarian for entrepreneurship. Now I would like to invite Honorable Vice Chancellor Dr. Inderjit Singh Ji to share a few words of wisdom. So,
thank you, Rasab. First of all, I'm very grateful to Dr. Prakash Rao for agreeing to my request to be here, and to be here in spite of the bad backache that he is having since day before yesterday. Still, he traveled to Ludhiana, and he's amongst us to encourage our students, our faculty, and other stakeholders, not only from this university, but from all over across the country, who are associated with us in this, who are in this program. Thank you very much, sir. And you make us proud that you made this visit to the university. And I think that he's the epitome of entrepreneurship for a veterinarian, where it can reach. I think his own net worth is more than 300 crore rupees, and he's employing 300 people now. His capital investment at the moment, I think it is a couple of 100 crore rupees. So such type of, and in spite of that, he's devoting that much time to the profession. Why he came to the National Academy of Veterinary Sciences last time as vice president and then as a president. This is just to give back to the society, and especially to the profession to which he is very closely associated, and it is very dear to his heart. That's why he came here, and he joined the academy as the president. And I'm sure under your dynamic leadership, the academy will, I think it will outpass other academies in giving the right input or right recommendations to the governments, to policymakers and others, which is the main aim of the academy. And the way of new thinking that with his being in the as the president of the academy has brought in the academy, it is totally different from what we are scoring, making the scorecard. Yesterday and day before yesterday, he was having a committee in the academy which are preparing the scorecard for different awards, even fellowships, etc. And that stereotype is being broken when we have such type of a personality in the academy at the helm of affairs of the academy. So we are really grateful, sir, that you could make it, and I'm sure that our faculty as well as students, they will be benefited from your learned views. And we always look forward to your opinion whenever the university think of anything. I was also interested that you should have a look at our mineral mixture plant and how we can automate, how we can increase its marketing, because the farmers have a lot of confidence in the university. That confidence is first thing which leads your business. And with that confidence, we have seen that what Swami Ramdev did, Baba Ramdev did. He first built the confidence, Swadeshi, Sehatmand, non-adulterated and all that. And then he's marketed anything whatsoever he markets, whether it is Swadeshi, whether it is not Swadeshi, whether it is pure or impure or whatsoever. Now that is selling like hotcakes. So that is the building the consumer confidence. That is the first thing, and that we have in mineral mixture. So rather than giving it to some other entrepreneur, we discussed in the college that why don't we, because we will be able to maintain the quality that it is known for, the university is known for. And for that, we wanted his opinion and his expert advice, and he will be visiting that also. Yesterday, in spite of traveling and backache, he also went to the Punjab Veterinary Vaccine Institute, because there the government has invested a lot, about 32 crore rupees will be invested to make it GMP, good manufacturing practices, compliant for vaccine manufacturing. For there also we need that this type of a collaboration between, in that case definitely we need that a collaboration between the government and the private players, that is required. because that is not like university there, the decision taking. And I will just share with you that yesterday when we went, there was no generator, and there was no power, and generator was not working. It was out of order. In vaccine manufacturing, this type of activity cannot be tolerated. It cannot happen at all. When we were discussing yesterday evening and again today morning with officers of the university, one thing that Dr. Rao said was that the entrepreneur, they should be young. Before 40, if you have to start doing entrepreneurship, you should plunge. And the first thing that comes is the first step, that I tell to everybody, that it is the first step that matters. And before taking the first step, you are hesitant. If you remove that hesitation, then there is no looking back. And taking that first step, you have to, as somebody asked, that what market research he has to do, what other aspect. You have to, first thing is you have to gain the knowledge wherever you want. If you want to have a feed industry, if you want to have a poultry farm or whatsoever, you should be thorough. And with that in mind, the university started about 20 short courses, certificate courses, PG diplomas last year. And we have added some more, including in the poultry farming, dairy farming also. And for AI, at the smallest level, even if a person is 10th or matriculate, he can also start artificial insemination. And that's very important if we have to take the technology to the farmer's doorstep. The veterinarians cannot take it. The para-vets also, they are not that many in number. So it is only the layman inseminator or the farmer himself inseminating his cows. That is the only way out. For that, we have to provide technology. Like Dr. Rao said, that it should be high-tech, something in which we should venture because the returns will be better. In that discipline, in reproduction discipline, I find that embryo transfer technology, that is one such technology where people are, entrepreneurs are entering. JK Trust, they have done it. They got training for 4 persons from USA and Brazil for paying about 40 lakh each. And now they are having a van and they are going from places to places across the country and taking 25,000 rupees per successful pregnancy. Now Government of India has also earmarked 111 crore for this technology. We have also started a course, I think, of 1 semester duration in embryo transfer technology. So if somebody wants to be entrepreneur, you go for these type of courses, because knowledge is the first thing. Unless you have the knowledge, don't start anything. As Dr. Rao said, that government is supporting entrepreneurship. Even the new education policy that has recently been launched last year, that also supports entrepreneurship. And I think our universities, they have also to gear up to support and to push for entrepreneurship, not only to our graduates, but even to our staff, our faculty who wants. We should have a system where if a faculty wants to do part-time also, we should support that. That we have to take a decision, maybe in the academic council and then in the board of management, etc. But we will definitely support if somebody comes with a proposal. And this is happening in the universities across the world. So my best wishes to all the students and faculty members and others who joined this seminar, that they will not hesitate in taking the first step, and our best wishes to all of them. Thank you.
Now I will again like to invite Dr. Inderjeet Singh sir to present a shawl as a token of love. Now I would like to invite Dr. S.S. Randhawa, Director of Clinics, to present a formal vote of thanks.
A very good afternoon to our valued guest, our worthy Vice Chancellor, Deans and Directors, head of departments, teachers, and students. It's my privilege to have been asked to propose the vote of thanks on this occasion. On behalf of Vivatsu fraternity, first of all, I extend my hearty vote of thanks to our distinguished guest, a nice speaker, Dr. D.V.R. Prakash Rao, President of Governing Council of National Academy of Veterinary Sciences, to give a very informative talk. I also give sincere thanks to our worthy Vice Chancellor for his leadership and for gracing the occasion. Also extend my sincere thanks to our deans and directors, head of departments, our teachers for full cooperation for this event to get it possible. And lastly, I don't take much time. I will invite you for a cup of tea with us. Thank you very much.